passion for all things nerdy. Dungeons and Dragons, this world's not blurry. From comics to movies, he's got it all. He's an outpost nerd living in a geeky world with his lightsaber shining. He's a Star Wars swirl through galaxies and adventures. He'll take you there, take you there. He's an outpost nerd, no one can compare. Nerd power, yeah, he's the king of nerds.
What's up, my nerd geeks and dweeps, and welcome to another transmission from the Outpost Nerd. I am the nerd of the Outpost. How is everyone doing today? I hope everyone's had a great Sunday and is looking forward to a great Easter in the morning. Today, we're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to my heart, Lord of the Rings. We got an announcement this past week of the next installment in the franchise. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that and then just talking about life stuff. It's been a while since I've done a live. I'm getting over, I believe, the bug, if you catch my meaning. So I apologize in advance. I'm dealing with a persistent wet cough. So dealing with that, dealing with some real world stuff. But I hope everyone's doing good. Let's see. We'll get back to that in a little bit. Divinity was in chat earlier. Thanks for coming, Div. One of my favorite people on YouTube's. But so, Lord of the Rings, to me, holds a special place in my heart. It's one of the few movies that I went with my dad to see in the theater. My dad, not much of a sci-fi fantasy guy, but he would take me to see a movie every once in a while. He was a pilot, so he wasn't home a lot, but when he was home, he would do stuff like that with me. He took me to see the Return of the Jedi when it was remastered, I believe in 98 or the late 90s. I'm not going to say when. I can't remember off the top of my head. He took me to see Attack of the Clones. He would take me to movies every once in a while. When I remember dating a girl when the Hobbit movies were coming out, and she wanted to go see the last Twilight movie. And I've shared this before, but I told her, I said, okay, here's the deal. I go to Twilight, I take you to Twilight, and then you go see the Hobbit movie with me. And she kept her into the bargain. I took her to go see the last Twilight movie, and I was literally, the theater was full. I don't think there were any seats left, and I was the only guy in that entire theater. What's up, Memento? How's it going? Thanks for coming in. Just talking about the Lord of the Rings news. So a few weeks later, the Hobbit movie comes out. Getting back to my story, and she went and saw it with me. And she fell asleep. So I've read all the books that I could. I tried to read the Silmarillion, and it was just Silmarillion is kind of the history of Middle Earth and Ardra, which is the whole world in general of that Tolkien created, not just Middle Earth. Middle Earth is like a continent part of it. And I read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings multiple times. Loved it. And last year, working at a middle school, working in the English department of the middle school, the 8th grade honors class, their spring reading was The Hobbit. And the teacher I worked with, such a gracious, nice teacher. She's left teaching to go into writing. She let me actually teach some classes as we were going through the reading. The toughest part about um, teaching the book is getting the kids' head out of the movies, because the movies, they added so much and took away so much, um, and but it was fun. The kids actually enjoyed it. I was surprised that the kids actually enjoyed the reading. So she had the classroom decked out with cardboard cutouts of Gandalf, Golem, Bilbo, Martin Freeman's Bilbo, since we were reading The Hobbit. I had Thorin's map framed and hanging on the wall. And on the outside of the door, she had Bilbo's no admittance except on party business sign that he hangs out of the of Bag Inn. And at the end of the year, she raffled them off. A lot of the kids won it. Some kids went home with the cardboard cutouts. I think she kept the framed map, but she gave me the no admittance party sign. And one of the kids was like, "Oh, come on, I'll rock paper scissors for you." And I'm like, "Nope, nope. My luck is not good enough to win it. Rock paper scissors. That's how bad my luck is." So I'm like, "Nope, I'm good. Have a great summer." And it is hanging on my bathroom door now. So to me, The Lord of the Rings is one of Western civilization's great pieces of literature, with up there with Beowulf and the Odyssey. Something that will be remembered for centuries to come, that scholars will look back on and study. It's one of the classics, is what I'm saying. And the Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies, I hold in the same regard movie-wise. They are classics. They're great. There are some differences, but it's going to be like that when you take a huge story like The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and translate them to movies, to film. You're going to have to lose stuff. You're going to have to add stuff in. You're going to have to decide, do I want to have this character in or this character in? Do I want to pay for an extra actor can I use the same actor and their character in this role? It's like Arwen never in the books saved Frodo. It was someone else. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But when you have a actress like Liv Tyler in the role, gorgeous, you want her use her. You want to get your money's worth, and I think that's why they changed there. But let's get to the breaking news. Stephen Colbert co-writing new Lord of the Rings movie. We've had The Rings of Power and The War of the Rohirrim, which is a more anime style story that I just couldn't get into. But the film will come after the next one, which is Andy Serkis is doing Lord of the Rings: The Hunt for Gollum, which is going to be set between the time Gollum finds the ring and loses it to Bilbo, I believe. Stephen Colbert has found his post-Late Show job. The man should never work in media ever again. He's been tapped for the next Lord of the Rings movie alongside Philippa Boynez and Peter McGee, which will be the second of 2 upcoming films in the blockbuster franchise. The thing I found myself reading over and over again were the 6 chapters early on in The Fellowship that y'all never developed into the first movie. This is him talking to Peter Jackson. It basically chapters 3 is company through Fog on the Borrowed Downs. And I thought, oh wait, maybe that could be its own story that could fit into a larger story, or we could make something that was completely faithful to the books while also being completely faithful to the movies that you guys already made. He's saying this to Jackson. And I wouldn't trust this man to write a fast food restaurant menu. Stephen Colbert has never been funny. I have never found him funny. And I remember seeing reruns of the English or the British um Whose Line Is It Anyway? He did a show called Strangers with Cans, which was just awful. I never got that. It's people are like, oh, it's a classic. I never liked it. Coffin fit. Excuse me. So I'm wondering, is his love of the franchise, because he's claimed he's been a super fan. He had Merry and Pippin on one night, and they had a quiz off, I guess, to see who could stump who, and the prize was replica rings, and I think Steven won that. But will his love for the franchise overwrite his political agenda? That's what I'm worried about. Because we see in everything a political agenda pushing a certain offhanded view of the world, if you catch my meaning. And I'm wondering, is he going to be able to keep politics out of it? Because we haven't seen that in a very long time. They're wanting to add things that Tolkien never wrote. And I'm a purist. If Tolkien didn't write it, he didn't. It doesn't happen. Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power is one of the most god awful abominations claiming to be Tolkien's work I've ever seen. It completely disregards Gandalf's backstory and how he's basically an angel sent to help Middle Earth. They tried to expand a character named Tom Bombadil, who he doesn't have a big part in the stories, but he's an interesting insert of that Tolkien put in this story. To me, the world of Tolkien, and you see a lot of parallels with Narnia. The world is sung into existence, but the character of Tom Bombadil claims he was there before creation, before the gods, the Valar, created Middle Earth and Ardra. Tom was already old, and Tolkien's in his writings was always vague. He would always be very vague and disregard, not disregard, I should say. He wouldn't give a definitive answer on who Tom was, and we see in Rings of Power they try to expand on him. You know, there's some questions that you can't answer. You should leave unanswered. Tom, to me, is outside the song of creation. That's how I see him. During the Council of Elrond, someone asks, why don't we take the ring to Tom? And Gandalf says that would be the worst idea we could ever have. Because Tom does not care, and he would forget that he had the ring. He wouldn't care. He wouldn't be malicious, like, oh, I don't give a rat's ass about that ring. He would just forget about it. He did not care about the goings-ons of the world. So that's why Jackson never really I think he was in a scene or maybe in the extended version. I'd have to go back and watch it. But Colbert continues, I started talking it over with my son Peter, who's also a screenwriter. Nepo baby, Nepo baby. And we worked out what we thought would work, especially as a framing device for the story, he continued. It took me a few years to scrape up courage into a pile to give you a call. Remember, he's talking to Peter Jackson. This is during a video guest with Peter Jackson. You liked it enough to talk to me about it. And ever since then, the two of us have been working with the brilliant Philippa Boynez on how to develop the story. Colbert, a lifelong devotee, added that the team at Warner Brothers, including Pam Abdi and Mike DeLucas, also loved it. Of course they loved it. Stephen Colbert, in my opinion, is proof that Hollywood protects their own. You can, if you say the most horrible shit about the right people, you will be praised and elevated. If you think the right way, you will be elevated and rewarded for it. The installment with the working title, The Lord of the Rings, Shadow of the Past, will come after Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for Gollum, which is going to be the second of 3 movies. This one is going to be after War of the Rohirrim, which is currently in development with director Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis, he played Gollum in the movies, but he was also the second unit director. Peter would be off with the first unit doing something, and to save time, the second unit would be filming other things. Like, if the first unit would be filming the stuff with Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas, and Gandalf, but then the second unit would be off filming with Frodo or Sam or one of the other hobbits. That's how that would work. It saves time. You're filming at the same time, and then you come back together for the big things, and you bring back the film and to edit and stuff like that. The installment, yeah, I just read that. Colbert will work with Jackson, Fran, Walsh, and Boynez, the Oscar-winning crew who brought the blockbuster The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogy to life on the film from another Tolkien's beloved books. God, I want this cough to go away. 14 years after the passing of Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin set out to retrace the first steps of their adventure. Meanwhile, Sam's daughter Eleanor has discovered a long-buried secret and is determined to uncover why the War of the Ring was very nearly lost before it ever began, the synopsis read. This sounds almost like... So there was supposed to be... There almost was a sequel to The Lord of the Rings, where in The Return of the King, Frodo didn't destroy the ring. This is just some manuscripts and notes, if I remember the story right, that one of Tolkien's sons found in a chest years after the author had passed. The story was it was supposed to be Frodo's, I think, daughter or granddaughter, and Middle Earth at this point had been kind of almost industrialized. It was more on par with industrialized turn of the century England. It had trains. It had all the things that were pretty common when Tolkien was growing up. If I remember correctly, if I remember the story correctly. So this is what it sounds like to me. And I wonder, Colbert had to know that, now that I'm reading this. So I am skeptical. I hope I'm correct in saying that he loves the franchise enough to keep the politics out of it. He's already been in he was in the Desolation of Smaug as one of the people of Lake Town. So Colbert was already in the movies. He plays just this nameless villager fleeing Smaug. Yeah, I'm not going to play the video. Kate Winslet returns in an undisclosed role, which I heard is going to be Smeagol's mother. Smeagol being Gollum when he was still a hobbit. Ian McKellen is returning as Gandalf, and Andy Serkis, of course, is reprising the role of Gollum. This is in The Hunt for Gollum, in addition to directing the film. Elijah Wood has also strongly hinted that he will be back as Frodo. The Hunt for Gollum, which takes place, like I said, between the Hobbit trilogy and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, follows Aragorn's quest to search for Gollum to learn more information about Bilbo's rings, which turns out to be the one ring that threatens all of Middle-earth during the events of the Lord of the Rings. So this movie, we already know what's going to happen. This is what I don't like about prequels, really. There's no sense of urgency because we already know the outcome. Because we know from Gandalf's dialogue in Lord of the Ring and the Fellowship of the Ring that he searched up and down the mountains for Gollum, and he's found no sign of him because he'd already been caught by the orcs. And the orcs tortured him and only got 2 words out of him: Shire and Baggins. I'm tired, y'all, of seeing franchises that I love, that I grew up on, being destroyed for the sake of agenda. We're not allowed escapism anymore. And I think that's the biggest issue that we're facing, right? One of the biggest issues is we're not allowed to have just a time where we can sit down, flip that remote on, and turn off our brains and enjoy something fun. Some good old-fashioned explosions and the hero or heroine saving the day, the lone man or the lone hero against the world, like Walker Texas Ranger, not this like, oh, emotional, how will I ever deal? Oh, I like this boy, but I also like this boy. Hannah Montana divinity. Made me watch that Hannah Montana reunion last night. I did it because I love you, Div. You're awesome. But I suffered for you. I hope she's in here and heard that. She's still here. But we're not allowed to. This week we lost Chuck Norris, and my last video was about just his movies and him as Walker from Walker Texas Ranger. It was the one hero against the world. We don't see that anymore. Even in the remakes of like MacGyver and Chuck and Walker that they've had over the past few years, they made MacGyver and Walker they made MacGyver and Walker part of a team, which that's not. We need to be told the idea that one person can change the world. And I think that's a dangerous thought for people to have from the powers that be. The powers that be are threatened by that kind of talk. We've had amazing historical figures, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and I'm going to say it, Charlie Kirk, these guys, these men who stood up and said, here's what I believe. let me show you how we can change the world. And they did. And look what happened to those three. We we're not allowed to imagine a better world because the problems that we face in the real world are imposed onto these fantasy worlds that we love, that we try to escape into. I've been working on a story for probably almost, oh god, 10, 15, maybe 20 years. And it's high fantasy. It's in the vein, I describe it as almost like Lord of the Rings meets sci-fi. It's almost like fantasy punk, I guess you could say. It's got ray guns, it's got hover cars, it's got flying cars, all that kind of stuff. But it also has magic, elves, dwarfs, and all that. But I'm not going to I'm not going to have the big bad orange king as my bad guy. I don't want that. I want people to be able to read my stuff and escape from it. To see that my characters, they work well together. One of them is not this high and mighty, all-knowing, good at everything for no reason kind of character. My characters are gonna have flaws, and that's what we need. We need characters that represent different groups, and each one of them has flaws. We saw that in with the trio from Lord of the Rings, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas. Each one of them had their different strengths and different skills, and they worked well together. One of my favorite scenes is in the Two Towers. The orcs are just banging at the door of Helm's Deep. They're trying to get in. They're about to get in. They're about to finally break into the keep of Helm Hammerhand for the first time ever. They're going to breach those walls. And Gimli and Aragorn come out of the secret passage on the side of the wall. That's probably a good 10, 15 feet gap between the main causeway up to the door and their little alcove that they're standing on. And Gimli just looks over, sees the distance, and realizes, crap, this is what I'm going to have to do. He looks at Aragorn, he says to him, throw me, toss me. And Aragorn's like, what? It's like, the distance is too great, toss me. And Aragorn goes to grab the collar of his shirt to throw him. And he's just like, Gimli's like, not a word to the elf. And Aragorn, not a word, and just tosses him. And him and Aragorn and Gimli just charge into the group of orcs and just beat them back. It's one of the funniest moments. And I'm on a bunch of Tolkien fan groups that just show me how little people know about the extended stories. If it's not in the movies, they don't understand it, or they don't know it. Like, they think just because the Rings of Power talked about Tom Bombadil, that was Tolkien's version. No, I've already talked about that. Tolkien did not want to expound on Tom. I have heard people say, oh, this is what happened when Gimli died. Gimli did not die. Gimli, due to his friendship with Legolas, was the only dwarf in Middle-earth history, before or after, to be granted passage over to the Undying Lands. People were like, well, weren't the dwarves created by the gods? Yes, but without permission. They were not part of this. I heard it described they go to the same heaven, but the dwarves go to a different waiting room. The dwarves, and I've heard it also said, the dwarves returned to the earth. They were made from the earth, and they returned to the earth. Basically, let me look it up. So the dwarves were created by Alua the Smith. He was not a he was a Vala, but not kind of high up in the ranks, and he did so without permission. So what does it say? Why don't I bring this up? I'll bring this up. I love going on wikis and talking about this stuff. So he a little I can't pronounce his name. He was desperate for, it says, desperate for pupils whom he could pass his knowledge, and unwilling to wait to the emergence of the children of Iluvatar, which were the elves and humans. See, the humans were created and elves were created by Iluvatar, and he created the dwarves. He didn't. He created his own race, being the dwarves. However, he did not have a clear idea of what the children of Iluvatar would be like, and because of the presence of the chaos caused by Melkor. Now, Melkor was the Dark Lord before Sauron. Basically, he was the devil, and Sauron was his lieutenant. And if I remember right, I think. Let me see. So Sauron was a Maya just like Gandalf, but he was a fallen Maya. Basically, he was a fallen angel that took over once Melkor was defeated. He took over. So Yule made the dwarf strong and unyielding and not willing to endure the dominations of others, as well as embodying some of the same of his values and desires for Middle Earth. So he created the dwarves without the permission of Iluvatar. So at one point, and you see in this amazing illustration, he's ordered to destroy his creation. So his hammer's back. He's about to destroy the dwarves that he created, and Iluvatar comes and takes them in, kind of adopts the dwarves. So the dwarves, while created by one of the Valar, they were not created with the permission of Iluvatar. And so they're not really allowed to they're not allowed to go to the Undying Lands. They don't, when they die, they don't go to the Undying Lands like the elves and man, because the elves and man were the creations of Iluvatar, the god, the over god. So Gimli goes on after the Lord of the Rings, after the War of the Ring. He rebuilds the gates of Minas Tirith, and then goes and becomes Lord of the Glittering Caves, which is a dwarf city in the caves behind Helm's Deep. And a treasure of his house were the hairs that Galadriel gave Gimli in the Fellowship of the Ring. Gimli has grown up with the typical hatred of elves by dwarves. So when he sees Galadriel, it's a great scene, great part of the story. Galadriel is giving gifts to the Fellowship. He gives Merry, Pippin, and Frodo daggers. He gives Legolas a bow. He gives Sam rope, and I don't remember what he gave Aragorn. But she has this one. It's this wonderful scene that I love in the movie where she says, "And what can an elf give a dwarf?" And he says nothing, and goes to walk off. And then it pans onto where they're on the boats going down the river, having left Lothlorien. And Legolas asks her, asks Gimli, what did she give you? And he says, I asked for a single hair of her golden hair. She gave me 3. And that, if you read the appendices, the fact that she gave him 3 has a very big significance. I mean, I'm gonna get this right. So let me look it up. Let's see. What elf? I just want to make sure I get this right. I'm really bad. She gave Aragorn, that's right. She gave Aragorn the Elfstone, which she gave to Aragorn from Arwen as a token of hope. Gimli took her 3 hairs and put them in an immeasurable crystal to be an heirloom of his house in memory of her. She gave a Melnorn seed and a box of earth from her garden to Sam. See, the thing about Sam, the reason she didn't give, I believe that she didn't give Sam like a dagger or anything. Sam was Tolkien's embodiment of all that was good. Sam was a farmer, a gardener. He's the hero of the story, and he ended up, Gimli just ended up loving. I don't think he said this great line. I can't remember if it was, I need to find my copy of the Fellowship of the Ring. I don't know if I still have it since the storm. But he says, I will never look at anything in this world again and call it beautiful, but the gift she gave me. This love, this friendship that grew in Gimli was what allowed him to be taken across the sea to the Undying Land. He was given such a given one of the greatest honor I think a dwarf could ever be given. He could see beauty beyond gold and jewels. And that made him completely different than any other dwarf that we saw in Tolkien's mythology. And I'm hoping that Colbert keeps all this in mind when he's writing his story. I'm wondering how they're going to take just these few chapters and expand on them enough. It's the same thing that they had with The Hobbit. People had with The Hobbit when they found out it was going to be 3 movies instead of 1. How are they going to expand enough to fill 3 movies? How are they going to expand 3 chapters to fill an entire movie? I personally would like to see the Scouring of the Shire. For those of you who've only seen the movies, again, the Scouring of the Shire. I think that's what it's called. Yes, it's one of the final chapters of is the 8th chapter of the second book of the Return of the King. What it is, Merry, Pippin, Sam, and Frodo, they return to the Shire and find it taken over by Sauron and Wormtongue. In the extended version of the movie, we see Sauron dies kind of a vicious death, where he and Grima are being held captive in Orthanc, the Tower of Isengard, and they're having that conversation between Gandalf and Saruman, and Wormtongue just cuts his throat, and Legolas shoots him for for some reason. He falls and he lands on that water wheel and just slowly sinks. That's not how Saruman's supposed to die in the books. What it is, he's hired bandits to take over the Shire and enslave the hobbits. And Wormtongue eventually cuts his throat and kills him. One thing I love about this chapter, we see Bilbo and Frodo's cousin, Lobelia Sackville Baggins, who no one likes her. She spent her entire life really despised as a hobbit. And she's having to work with Sauron because, if I remember correctly, Sauron has her sons held captive. Yeah, they take over with a group of ruffian men. Yeah, and she loses her sons. She finds out that Sauron has killed her sons, and she's one of the leaders in the Hobbit revolt. And afterwards, people start liking her. For the first time in her life, people like her. And I would love to see that on film. We saw a little bit of it in the movie, in the Fellowship of the Ring, when Frodo looks into Galadriel's mirror, and we see what could happen if he fails. That scene where, like, the green dragon is on fire and the hobbits are being attacked by the orcs, that's supposed to be the Scouring of the Shire. Now, the Scouring of the Shire is a very important chapter because it's Tolkien saying that no place in the world goes untouched by war. Every place is scarred by war in some way or another. This was Tolkien. He served in the trenches during World War I, and what he saw in there really influenced a lot of his writing. In the stories, we don't see a lot of the big battles because, due to his experience in the trenches, Tolkien really didn't like writing battles. Because it's like we don't see in Return of the King, we don't really see the Battle of Pelennor Fields. You know, that epic battle outside of Minas Tirith with the war elephants and all the thousands of orc and the charge of the Rohirrim. We don't see that really in the story. And we don't see in The Hobbit the Battle of the Five Armies because Frodo gets knocked out. I mean, Bilbo gets knocked out. Because Tolkien, he was touched by war in his life, and so he didn't really like writing about it. And I think that's one thing I had to work with my kids when I was working on with them. They were expecting to be reading about this huge big battle. We didn't see that. It's like in The Hobbit, when Bilbo comes to, when they actually find him after he's come to, that's when he learns that Thorin is on his deathbed. And it's understandable. Tolkien went through one of the most horrific experiences a man could go in history. World War One was called the Great War, the war to end all wars. People actually thought that after that giant war, there would never be war again until about what, 15, 20, 30 years later, we got World War II. But Tolkien, he was able to let his experiences impact his writing, and he was able to create the great British mythology. He went into this writing wanting to create a great British mythology, great British epic, and that's what he did. But we've seen so many people try to just make it their own. No. There are some IPs, some great stories that you just tell it. You don't put your mark on it. We saw that in Star Wars. You don't, with just almost the revolving door of directors they had for a while in the sequel trilogies. You don't get to come in to these amazing properties and stamp it. Here's what I did. I'm better than the author or the original guy. This is mine. No, it's not. You're a custodian. A director, when they adapt books, they're not the creators. They're custodians of the story. And I think that's what a lot of people are forgetting. I like that there's so many people so passionate about this story. But that doesn't mean we have to agree. And I think that's what a lot of people in the past 20 years have forgotten. We don't have to agree on everything. I don't agree on everything Div says. I don't agree with everything Memento Mori says. I don't agree half the time, some of the time with what I say. I'm like, did I really just say that stupid shit? It's ridiculous. Show me someone that agrees with someone 90% of the time, or let alone 100% of the time, and I'll show you a cult member. I've said that before. We should be able to share our disagreements as much as we can share our likes without the fear of reprisal, without the fear of being attacked. I don't like Star Trek Academy. I think Star Trek Academy is the worst pile of garbage that I've seen since, and that's saying a lot since the Kurtzman Trek. But if you like it, great, enjoy it. I don't. Go, bye, see ya. Go watch it. Go back, get a bag of popcorn, and put in the other crap. I don't want to watch Star Trek 90210 or Star Trek One Tree Hill. Show me new aliens. Show me laser battles or epic space battles. Show me them finding new planets to boldly go where no one has gone before. That kind of thing. Not that, oh, you got an F in your astrophysics, you better study. Or, oh my God, does he like me? Oh, but I like this guy. I don't care about that. I want aliens. I want sword fights. I want explosions. I want stories. I want heroes that inspire. We haven't gotten that in a very long time. After that rant, I need a drink. And I wish it was alcohol. I love the arts. I love creating something from nothing and sharing it with the world. I love seeing other people's views on things. I love seeing what people have to say, how they feel, what drives them. And you know what? If someone tried to silence someone that disagreed with me, I'd be the first one to step in their defense. I want to hear all the ideas, not just the ones that I like. I want to hear the good and the bad, so I can decide what the good ideas are. I want to be able to share my outlandish views. And it just feels like we're being allowed to do that less and less and less. Well, nerd, what about Stephen Colbert? He's just sharing his views. Yes, and I can disagree with him. That's my thing, though. I'm not allowed to disagree with Stephen Colbert and his ilk. But if they disagree with me, or people who think like me, people who want fairness, who want honesty, we're attacked. We're lied about. We're called racist. We're called homophobic. We're called bigoted. What? Okay. Or when I ask for proof, you say something and I ask for proof. Well, that's not my job. Yes, the fuck it is. Your part of your job is when you make a statement, when you make a claim, have the shit to back it up. I had a disagreement with a teacher. I didn't work with him. He taught science, I believe. I worked with English teachers. One day at lunch, he said something. I said, okay, where did you hear that from? Show me. I don't have to. Yes, you do. You make these claims and you don't think you have to prove it? Well, hello, McFly. It's like, so if I say, oh, the sky is purple and it's going to be raining babies at 3:00 tomorrow. Okay, nerd, where do you have that? Where's your proof of that? What makes you say that? I don't have to tell you anything. But you're an evil, heartless bigot who's attacking me if you say anything contrary to what I just said. It's maybe it's my autism. Maybe it's my autism kicking in. But I want proof. I want honesty. Tell me why you think that. I'll tell you mine. And let's come together in a consensus. Consensus seems to have become a dirty word the past couple of decades. It's because the powers that be want us divided. Divide and conquer. And it started back in late 2020s. We have seen it just grow worse and worse to the point of violence. So that's why we need, with the horrors that we see in the world on a daily basis, we need escapes. We need a place to go, a world to escape to where the impossible can happen. We need a place that magic exists, that we can find the stars and that's what they're trying to take from us. That's what that's how humanity has survived with our imaginations. The worlds that we create with our imaginations have allowed us to keep going, to keep moving forward, to keep inventing. Excuse me. We need to stop allowing these horrible people, these talentless people, we need to stop letting them destroy what we love, what we need to survive. And we need the arts to survive. We need it as much as we need food and air. We need the arts. We need that creative outlet. In all honesty, if I didn't create, I'd probably be addicted to drugs or something. I would not be able to survive if I couldn't create. We've created such horrors in our world, but we've also created such immense beauty. And Lord of the Rings is an example of that. And I'm hoping, as I've said before, and I will keep saying, I didn't say you had to pick one. I didn't say you had to pick one, Memento. But thank you all for being here. Leave a like, share. Before I go, last thing before I go, I want to thank those of you that have supported me. If you want to support me, go to buymecoffee.com/outpostnerd. If you want to help grow the channel, give me some coffee fee. And I'd like to thank those who have already supported the channel: Squab Bob, Divinity Said, Cake or Death, and Bertrand 850. Love you all. So leave a like, subscribe, and just remember what I always say. Find your passion and nerd out about it. I'm the nerd of the Outpost. I love y'all, and I'm gone.
Lost in space, I found my beliefs. In this outpost of silence, you might wait. Binary code run through my veins. Every deep and deep, I feel no pain. Signing off, it's time to go. Goodbye, my nerdy friends. See you later. I know through the stars we've shared this ride, but now it's time.